a little bit more so, like knowing that moringa has very high levels of iron, not the metal iron, but the hemoglobin iron, the blood iron, the liquid iron, the plant iron, not the rock iron, not the iron that they inject into Snickers bars, but the iron that's actually liquid from a plant. And so there's a difference. It's a phosphate versus something else. The phosphate, I believe, is the rock, and then there's a liquid iron, and that's what plants do for us. Plants pull up the liquid mineral. So when someone says this has iron, magnesium, calcium, potassium, somebody like iron, that's a heavy metal. That's a heavy metal, like that's not good for you. Heavy metals may not be good for you to ingest. You could have poisoning. Uh, but what I did to start off was to learn what iron is. I learned what iron does, and found out firsthand with my own health conditions by using moringa more and more and more, and eating less and less and less for myself to know the power that it gave me. If you want to be your own testimonial, then you have to test it out and use it a lot more. Have a higher dosage of it in your diet to see the difference. Like, whoa, like I took too much moringa today. That made me go to the bathroom a little bit too much. So you know your level. So when someone says, how much moringa do I take? Knowing that if we're talking about powder, we know that it's green. And so we know that green is indicative of different minerals. The color of the green and the depth of that green is determined by how much mineral is in it. I had somebody tell me, because I was like, hey, why is your moringa brown? And they said, oh, it's just because of the minerals that's in the soil. And I said, well, I get brown moringa whenever I don't dry it fast enough. So when it sits composting in a pile, I know how to get brown moringa because you've let it sit in a pile too long and you didn't get it on the racks to dry fast enough. Or maybe because you dried it in a dryer, like an actual dryer, and you heated it up and you cooked it and it actually browned out. So it's not necessarily the soil, man. It's actually the drying process. It's about preserving the nutrient. So, and also how much nutrient can you preserve in that process to be able to absorb it in the body? Now, a lot of people are saying that freeze drying is going to give you a superior mineral content product. And one of the things that we would love to get everybody on that same level is that if we all want to harvest and we all want to have some powder to sell through the collective, there's no way you're going to be able to have enough dry racks and dry room unless you devote an entire room or potentially a whole shed into drying. I have several drying facilities just to keep up with the demand of powder that I have flowing through the orders. So I've got people drying here, myself drying here. I'm constantly drying. But to preserve the nutrient super fast, so like right when it's off the tree is that crucial time to get the nutrient. And also the time of day in which you harvest is going to produce an even higher level mineral content in your leaf. So being a part of the whole process of this is going to ensure that your moringa is a higher quality because you're harvesting it right at sunrise, right when the sap is really high up in the leaf, and you're doing it on a full moon. You're doing it on a full moon, and you're harvesting every 30 days on the full moon morning of. And that's when you've got the most nutrient in the leaf. That's when you harvest, and you've got everything pulled up from the soil in the leaf. If you're harvesting it at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and on a new moon, potentially all of those nutrients are down in the soil and they're not even in the leaf. So you're going to have a weaker leaf and a weaker nutrient dense product. So assuring that first is actually how is making sure that it's in the soil, making sure that you're putting those minerals in your soil first. So making sure that you have a nice, rich, fertile soil so that way it has the potential to pull it up into the greens, and then also harvesting at a time that's right for harvest, and then also making sure that the drying process is happening so you're not depleting any of the nutrients from that point. And so those three steps is going to assure that you have a higher level of nutrient dense product than the next person that just grew it because it was barren land. You still have to replenish that soil even through like a year or 2 years worth of chopping and dropping. If you just started off with the moringa by itself and didn't have anything and it was depleted, degraded soil, you could plant moringa on the property, but that first year, those greens may not be as nutritious if you were to just chop everything, drop it back down on top, let the minerals that the moringa pulled up from deep down settle on the top, so that way it can be redigested by the microbes. It can build up the soil content by building up the enzymes and microorganisms because they're going to eat the live organic material. And then you have a denser, more nutrient-rich green from there. So just making sure that the soil has the iron, the magnesium, the zinc, and the copper, and all the things that you need to have a really healthy tree. Use it for yourself to feel confident. When I decided that I wanted to make moringa my thing, I fasted on moringa for 30 days. When I was like, if I'm going to really make sure that this is my thing, I was doing the same thing that you're doing. And I'm like, if I'm going to take this, I have to make sure that I'm confident in it, because at that point I was already kind of thinking like, is this real? Is this even real? Like, yeah, I feel good. It makes me feel good. But is it real for that person that's going to be calling me that's really sick? And so that's when a lot of the calls that I get are people that are really, really sick. So a lot of your clientele are going to be the people that are really in need of that high quality moringa. And that's why we want to be able to have control all the way through the process. We don't want to just be retailers and selling moringa on the market that's from people that don't even care about what's in the soil or what time to harvest it or how to dry it, because those are all very important in making sure you're getting those minerals in the body. Water.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it was in 2016. It was January of 2016. And I just started the new year, like January 1st. And then I was like, well, I'll just go to my birthday, January 29th. So yeah, it was the first week was eating the greens fresh, just having it in a bowl like a salad, just kind of having it like a salad with a little bit of oil. And then I was really starting to feel compacted. I started to feel compacted with only having the fresh greens. And I was like, I got to clean my colon out completely. So I took some enemas, and I also drank a half a cup of Epsom salt water with a half a cup of oil, and use that as a colon cleanse, but also as a liver gallbladder flush. So I did that, emptied my colon completely out. I had nothing in my colon. That way it wasn't just sitting in there. It wasn't giving me bad breath or anything. No, nothing. And then I used the powder in the water and made tea every day to also help with a little bit of fiber. I had a little bit of fiber moving through there just to kind of push little things. So like even after 30 days, there was still stuff coming out, from 25 years worth of eating poorly and, having I had a fatty liver at that time. And so I wasn't able to go to the bathroom, but once every other week, I was going to the bathroom once a week. And so I wasn't absorbing any minerals. I wasn't absorbing any food. I was pale. I was anemic. I was getting scabs and blotching all over. My skin was starting to cut and break out because I wasn't absorbing any of the minerals that I was eating. I was eating lots of rice, white rice. I didn't know what to eat. And that's when I found Dr. Sebi. And so Dr. Sebi introduced me to the blood. And that's why he brought up moringa, was for the blood. So I don't talk about anything else. When someone's like, what's moringa good for? I just say it has iron and protein, of course, but it's really good for the blood. And once you talk about the blood, and that's what Dr. Sebi taught me, is that the blood is the showstopper. The blood is the lubrication and everything in the entire body, and the skin and every single organ is determined. The health of that is determined by your blood. And so if you're I have people call me that say they produce too much red blood cells or they produce too much white blood cells, hypo something, hypo hypo blood, and so moringa is what's called an adaptogen. Have you ever heard of that term, an adaptogen? Okay, so we can kind of go into that a little bit. And that's why you're going to feel more confident about selling moringa because it is an adaptogen. And when you look up what an adaptogen does, it meets you where you are and brings you back to balance, wherever extreme that you are. It's amazing. It's like whatever your body needs, it will put it in that direction and bring you back into balance. It's hard, kind of hard to explain. I encourage you to look up adaptogen. It adapts to your body. And so that's why it can be used for over 300 known diseases. It's an Ayurvedic herb that has over 300 in the book, in the Mahabharata, over 300. It's good for this, and this. But you're not a doctor and you can't say any of those things really, right? You can't say that it does this. You have to say it can do this. That word can, it has to be in that sentence when you're talking to somebody. Could it do this? It could. It could possibly do that, and just protecting yourself in that way. And just being the guy that has it and has it at the high quality, the confidence is going to come from being the grower. It's going to be from knowing every step along the line, like, hey, that's why I'm happy in what I do. Because when someone buys it from me, it might have taken longer. They might not have been happy about it taking 2-3 weeks to get to them. But when they get it, they're like, holy crap, like they can feel the vibration of it. They see it, they smell it. They're like, this was worth the wait. I haven't seen or felt or tasted or smelled moringa like this ever. And because most of them will see my prices and go buy somewhere else and then end up coming back to me because they got it crappy, they got it cheap, and they got what they paid for. And so that's why I encourage you, don't worry about the price of the market. Raise your price higher than the market so that way you garner that premium price. And that's what we are. We are a premium product. We're the highest. We may be the most expensive moringa on the market. Let's position ourselves as that $2,000 bottle of wine versus a $20 bottle of wine that has fillers in it and nitrites in it and sulfites in it. Let's be the $2,000 bottle of wine that also, with those sales, we can have these educational programs and things like that to infiltrate lower income communities, to teach them and educate them about their native tree. This tree is from India and from Africa and most of the poorest areas in the USA. It could be right back, and it's like it's in the blood. It's knowledge that has been growing for thousands and thousands of years in your blood. And I tell people all the time, you're only 1 generation or 2 generations removed from being a farmer. Your grandparents were farmers. And so people are walking down the street and they see a moringa tree and they're like, hey, that looks familiar. Like, I think, let me call my grandma. I'll get my grandma on FaceTime. Grandma, have you know that tree? Like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen that tree. I grew up with that tree, And so then now that grandchild is growing that tree because they remembered it through just their blood. Speaking of blood. I'm an A positive blood type. Being more confident when you talk to someone and knowing, because they're coming to you with a lot of health issues. They're coming to you looking in confidence, like you're potentially the health nut that they've been looking for. Like, you must be so healthy, and yes, you want to exude that. You want to say, I take moringa every day and have a great figure and feel confident about what you're selling. And so I'm an A positive blood type, which is the furthest removed from an O blood type. I'm the most inbred, coming from an original type of blood. And mostly O's can eat anything. They have And it doesn't determine by color of the skin. It's not determined by the color of the skin. It's 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 where you're coming from, and there are different potentially humans. Not everybody may like the idea of coming from Africa, and there is knowing that there are different types of humanoids that potentially may not have even entered Africa that we are also descendants of. But talking about the blood, because I really love talking about this, because this is what inspired me to talk about Moringa so much and passionately, is because of my health. And so when I found out that I'm A positive, if you take 10 people in a room and line them up and ask them what they eat, and this person says, I'm really carnivorous. This person says, I'm very herbivorous. This person says, I'm a vegetarian. This person says, I'm meat only, carnivore only. This person says, I'm mixed, 50-50. The people that are like heavy meat are going to say they're O's. The people that are saying that they're veggies and vegetarians, they're going to say that they're A. They're going to find out that they're mostly A's. And it's just because of our stomach and how things break down in our stomach. It's the enzymes that are present in our stomach. And yeah, not to go too much further on that, but I love that your question was talking about confidence, using it more, knowing that it's an adaptogen. So some tools to help you kind of go off in the next week to just keep doing more research, and not to be too stuck in as to what he says and she says. Is to mostly know that the reason why it's so popular is because it has been used for thousands of years, with as many applications as it has. It has hundreds of applications where maybe like algae is really great. And it's most nutritious. It's even more nutritious potentially than moringa, but the applications of it are limited because it's tough to grow. You have to grow it in this liquid solution, and it's even more nutritious, but it's, the ease and application of it is what makes moringa so much more versatile and applicable to us farmers. And to have an easy startup, 1 year, you can be profitable within the first year because you've got some good